name is Tara Fela-Durotoye, and I'm the creative director of House of Tara. House of Tara is an indigenous beauty company, and our primary motivation is building lives and empowering young women, and we use several platforms to make that happen. One of them is through our makeup schools, where we train people who want to become professional makeup artists and help them to start up a business. Two is through our product line, which we develop as a way to empower young women, to help them to become financially independent. To be able to do so, we have a great product that is focused on black women, and we teach our ladies on how to effectively sell those products in a way that they can become financially independent. But the question also is, how did I start? I started as a bridal makeup artist. I was the pioneer bridal makeup artist in Nigeria, and I'm proudly so. Thankfully today the industry has grown in leaps and bounds. Bridal makeup was just going to people's houses and doing makeup for brides who were getting married. And at the time when I started, because it wasn't a profession, a lot of people were not willing to even pay for it. It's 15 years now since that time, and it's been a long ride all the way, ups and downs, some great times and some exciting times. At the time when I started as a makeup artist, it was difficult to convince people to pay for the service. So somebody would say, oh well, it's not just makeup. So even though around the world professional makeup artist was already a profession, in Nigeria it wasn't. So that was one of the challenges, but some of the joys of it was being able to see people respond, whether it's the bridesmaids who are on the bridal train respond to your work, or you see the bride sometimes become teary after seeing her face in the mirror, and they're excited. Those were some of the great exciting moments from just doing makeup for brides. But over the years, the business has grown, and it's transited from that point where I was just doing makeup for people to training. So as I went to the bride's houses, from time to time, friends of the bride or cousins who are there would say, I love makeup, I think this is something I can also do, and I'd like you to train me so that I can become a professional. And that's where there was the birth of the makeup school. We started with 2 students, and they didn't pay when they started because I didn't know what to charge them, and I didn't even have a curriculum because I was self-trained as well. Okay. But as I went along the way, I realized I needed it to be more structured. I also started to advertise it, so more people knew that there was something that was available, because some people didn't ask just simply because they didn't know or they were not sure. But before the product line was created, it came out of my students needing products that they would use to practice with, and needing products that were available and they could buy, and they knew would be good for their clients. Because one of the things that we found out was, a lot of the times our customers sometimes bought products abroad, came back to Nigeria and couldn't use the shades because the colors were not strong enough as against the black woman's skin. The products that were being marketed most of the time abroad were products that sometimes work, sometimes doesn't work, or you get a whole palette and maybe 5 or 3 colors works for you. But here I was, because of my experience working with Nigerian women consistently on a daily basis, I could come up with the colors, I could come up with texture, and I knew that would suit the women. And so that was how the creation of the product line started as well. At the time when we started, there was we didn't have access to financing, and it was obvious for the obvious reasons. One of them, we didn't have collateral. Another reason was because we're a known business, and obviously, as I said earlier, I was also a pioneer, so there was no one preceding me who could also stay and say, this is what I did to do this. So the banks were not interested. They didn't understand the business. They didn't understand how what you need financing for. So, but I'm happy because I grew the business organically as a result of that. And I think that sometimes when you don't have access to funds, it makes you creative, and you begin to think, and you sometimes have to, think deeper as to what can I do and how can I make things happen. So for a long time, for many years, we didn't get financing. I think that the only time, the year we got financing was probably about 5 years ago for the first time that we got financing. And today, House of Tara has grown beyond that. These days, sometimes the banks come to you, and every bank wants to give you money. You're almost at the point where you're saying, no, we don't need money at this time. Okay. But I think that season came, and it was good, but it's past. I think that starting off funding, there were little things like, for example, having to pay for rent, negotiating with the landlord, or I can't pay for 2 years. Can I pay the first year and pay the balance in the next 6 months or the next 3 months? That was one of the things. Negotiations also in terms of walking up to women who, cosmetic sellers, for example, people who are in the business, and just saying that, you know, I would like to buy things on credit. So getting credit also was another way. Also, you know, at the time, my young husband also was able to chip in here and there when money was needed. So sometimes it's not, you have to think about other ways. It's not necessarily to get the banks to give you. These are some of the things that we're able to do to be able to finance. And then savings. I was very, very disciplined in knowing that today was not the day for my gratification. It was still going to be in the future. And so for this very moment, I needed to put as much money. So I banked all my money. And banking all my money has played a significant role in decision making for banks today, because then they can see a track record of you consistently being diligent at your trade. I was blessed to marry a man who was very passionate about my vision. Extremely passionate about my vision, so he will bend over as much as he can to help me achieve my dream. And if he sees that I'm not on track, even though after I have shared with him what I want to do, I'm not on track, he's constantly reminding me of where I want to go to, so that tomorrow I don't wake up and say I didn't achieve it. That's one. Two, of course, he also has a management consulting background, which also helped me to be able to find the business of doing makeup, you know, and to build it into a business. So I think that one person, my husband, definitely is a significant influence in doing business. But also as the business has grown, I've also found that my employees, people who work with me, the impact is for me, I see people who've committed their lives to developing the company, and I think that I owe it to them every day to make sure that the business grows and grows and is able to deliver to them also for their future what they desire. And challenges have been, I mean, more than finance, at different levels. So for example, it was when we started producing our makeup, manufacturing our makeup line, was inventory control. How do you ensure that you don't stock out on your products? How do you make sure that you're able to track your cycle, your purchase cycle, and be able to determine what your low seasons are and what your high seasons are? It was a challenge for us. It wasn't something, I was a makeup artist, I was an undergraduate, so I didn't have those experiences, but I had to learn them as I went along. Putting control measures in place. How do you make sure that there's segregation of duties, that one person is not signing checks and the same person is disbursing money, in a way that you don't make your staff, who are sheep, to become wolves and turn soft people into thieves? How do you, these are some of the things that I've learned, and in some of those challenges include, you know, theft, you know, consistently, whether theft from customers or theft from even within the system. Challenges like managing home and managing the business at the same time. How to consistently keep the vision of the business in the minds of your people, because some people come into the company very passionate about, sometimes it's the business model, sometimes it's about you, the founder, that they're passionate about, so they're following you as a person, and so, but you're not there all the time to inspire them, and they lose track and lose focus, especially also because many times many of them are young people. How do you as a person consistently keep the vision flame alive in the hearts of your employees is a tough call. So at different seasons of the business life, we found that there are different challenges. Sometimes it's how do you employ, attract talent and then retain them, and how do you position House of Tara to be a company that talents will be attracted to? You know, you got into a stage before where people didn't want to work for House of Tara because they just thought it was a season where it was just a passing phase. It was something you just do for now and then go. But we've passed that stage. People are staying longer. We have 4 years, people who have stayed up to 7 years. Great. But now we've passed that stage where we want to employ people at a more senior level. And the question is, will somebody leave a UBA to come and work for a House of Tara? How do I position House of Tara in a way that's attractive to somebody at that level? So the challenges just change all the time. Expansion, you know, how do you ensure that you keep the business, the standard of the business at the same level in all branches across Nigeria? So when the business becomes a national or regional business, how do you make sure that you're relevant at different places? So Kano wants flyers that are in Hausa, but we don't normally do flyers in Hausa. Kano wants their staff to dress a certain way when we have a standard dress code in all branches. So how do you make sure that even though you're expanding and you're standardizing, you also fit in to the communities where you are? I was saying to someone today, I said, you know, consistently, it's the stories, success stories of the people whose lives have been changed is what inspires me. In December, I went across Nigeria to the different regions where House of Tara is present, and I had an appreciation party for our reps, the ladies who sell our products. And to leave some of those meetings and hear how House of Tara has changed their lives is for me a constant motivation. I say to them, there are many times where I have challenges with customs, and I have challenges with NAFDAC or whatever, and I want to quit. But when I think of those lives that are being changed, young ladies who never even imagined that they could do anything with their lives have become professional makeup artists. So some of them have become speakers, you know. Someone said to me, I have now become a Tara in Calabar because people call me and ask me to come and talk about my story and how I started my business. And that's the same thing I'm doing here. And they've learned from me how to make their presentations, how to speak to other women, because they come for our workshops, and in the workshop they see all these things, and these skills are taught them. And so for me, and I said to them at the end of December, if I died in December after hearing all these stories, then I feel like I fulfilled my life's call. I convinced myself that I didn't need to carry designer bags, and I didn't need to drive a luxurious car. I convinced myself because I was trying to stay focused on achieving my vision, which was, if I was going to grow my business organically, then every money that was coming into the business needed to go back into the business. But if I was struggling with that and living the lifestyle that I desired, then I had to decide one of them. Which one was it? Was it going to be to build a business that would last me long for generations, or to invest more in carrying designer bags and buying jewelry and all of that? And so people would listen to me and say, oh, Tara is a miser, Tara is stingy, because friends who sold these things noticed that I never bought. So I didn't do Ashwaibis. These are some of the challenges. Today, I can afford to do Ashwaibi. I can afford to buy a luxurious car, right? I can afford to carry a designer bag and to buy jewelry today. But for many years, consistently, I made those sacrifices because the business needed the money. And so my advice to young people who are starting up their businesses, I think that it's important for you to pay yourself a salary. And I earn a salary. I earn a good salary today. But at the time when I started the business, I knew that it was important that all the monies went back into the bank. I remember a story of, I went to a wedding and somebody was sitting across the table from me, and the lady recognized my face from somewhere and kept smiling, and I didn't realize who she was. Later on, she introduced herself and said, do you remember me? And I said, no. She said, well, I used to work in so-and-so bank at Faloma Shopping Center, and I remember you always coming to the bank with your 5,000, your 3,000, and depositing on Mondays, because I would have done my bridal jobs over the weekend. The banks would have been closed on Sunday. So Mondays, I will consistently take the money to the bank. She remembered me for that. She remembered that I did that as a culture. What I was just doing, I didn't know that it was right. I didn't know whether I just knew that I needed to put my monies together. So at every point in time when I had a project, I worked towards my project till this very day. We have a culture in House of Tara to bank all our monies, and it didn't just happen coincidentally. It happened because I started that system, and that's what is being replicated till today. So my advice to a lot of people is, you usually have what it takes, even financially within your system, to just think out of the box, engage your mind, and ask God for inspiration, and He would give you. More recently, I went through a phase where I, as a person, was engrossed in myself. And as a leader, you must remember that you're leading people. There are people who are following you. So you have, it's a huge responsibility, first of all, to call yourself a leader or to be called a leader. The minute somebody calls you a leader, the minute you put yourself in a position of leadership, then there are responsibilities that come with it. And one of those responsibilities is to engage your followers consistently. And that's the power of Facebook, for example. And we'll go and talk about that as well. That at every point in time, leadership is a huge responsibility and is a huge burden on your shoulder. The question is, how do I ensure that I keep my compassion as a leader to the extent that my people can see that I'm still compassionate? How do I show my people that I care consistently? That is the responsibility of leadership. You don't expect your employees to imagine that you care. You have to show that you care, and it's your responsibility to show it once and show it consistently. That is the burden of leadership. That's one of the challenges. Sometimes it's also seeing a good employee who you ought to pay more leave because you couldn't afford to pay more. But you know, someone said to me, one of my staff said to me recently, you have to pay, you pay either way. You either pay by losing them or you pay by paying them. You know, and I thought that was very profound. And so sometimes for me today, my thoughts has changed and realized that at every season in people's lives, if you're employing people at a young age, they're more willing to take because they know they're about to learn and grow. But there's certain levels where they get to where it's not about learning anymore, it's about giving, and it's also about earning. So you have to know what phase the employee that you're employing at that time is in, and respond accordingly. It's huge responsibility, but that's why you call yourself the CEO. And if you call yourself the CEO, then there's a burden to carry. What didn't I know before that I know today? I know today that every vision and every dream that I've ever had will be fulfilled. I know that for a fact today, and I didn't know that before, because I've looked through my life and I've seen that all that I am today is what I dreamt about 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I've been seeing them being achieved today, and so I'm more confident and I have more faith that it's possible for me to achieve, to build House of Tara to become a globally respected beauty company, because I dreamed it 10 years ago. Personally, obviously, I have my own fan base, and people who follow me for different reasons, not necessarily because of the business, but simply because I inspire them, or I'm a role model, and so I'm able to share my insights and the things that I'm convinced about on Twitter, for example, and on Facebook, and that way I'm able to share more with my fans and people who follow me, because the essence of the reasons why you have the fans is because they admire you for something, and you need to engage them. For a business, I have it as a responsibility. I have someone whose role it is to ensure that they engage our fans on Facebook and give them information that is also shareable in a way that it's not just our fans who are being engaged, but our fans are also engaging others as well. And as a tool for growing our business, we've come to realize that the next generation are online. And so as a business, we need to transcend from the level where we are to engage in the next generation, and that's where they are. So it's important that we keep engaging them, if not necessarily for them to make the sale today, but to keep the brand in the minds of the next generation.